Welcome to the channel, Thinking Theology. I'm Don. You saw the title. I'm doing just random facts, assorted facts or information about NASA. I was rooting around. I love NASA. I have, since a kid, loved NASA. I love who doesn't love a rocket blasting off? But I just decided for the channel, since currently, as of the time of this recording, the channel name is Thinking Theology. Anything that sort of touches, even tangentially, on a theological topic, it could have theological implications, is grounds for discussion. That's it. I don't defend theology. I'm agnostic. But I like seeing the discussion opening up the different biological, evolutionary ideas, cosmological ideas, and that's partly why I said, let's look at NASA. I love NASA. I got my James Webb Space Telescope hat on. So firstly, what is NASA? It's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and they're responsible for space exploration and research. And the federal government and Congress has oversight. They almost killed the James Webb Space Telescope because it was $10 billion over budget. It took like 12 additional years. There were so many issues. It was such a complex problem, some of which I'll touch on here. But I just want to start with astronauts. How much do astronauts get paid? Right? They very bright people, very educated, highly trained. How much do astronauts get paid? NASA's website stated its 2024 astronaut pay was just over $152,000 a year. I mean, that's not the worst job, but what they have to do to get to that point. So you've done your time to become an astronaut. Does NASA only explore like outer space, like taking off out of Earth's atmosphere? And the answer to that is no. A little known tidbit is it also explores the oceans. Now that came as a shock to me, but now it primarily uses satellites versus submersibles to do its research, but it also maps land. I mean, when you've got the Hubble up there and you've got other satellites up there, we all know that they're mapping the land. It's not just Amazon and Google that's mapping what's going on. NASA has a lot to do with that technologically. But now, as far as the oceans go, the NOAA, that's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, they do a lot of the work on currents and mapping the ocean floor, and they've sort of taken over some of that, whereas NASA, of course, as we know, is in the business of more of cosmology, if you will, which I love. But NASA has not completely separated themselves from it. I mean, they're involved with, the topography of the land. There's temperatures and other such things maybe that we don't even know about that they're studying. But NASA is involved in just broad scale cosmology, including the Earth and under the surface of the ocean. How fast does a rocket have to go to escape Earth's gravity? We tend to think if we watch a rocket go off, many folks just think, oh, look at that. It's got that long, pretty fire coming out of the bottom and it blasts straight up and that's what's getting it there. But what we learned over time is that there's an escape velocity. That's what it's called. The velocity required of an object to escape Earth's gravitational pull. So like James Webb or the Hubble or the Apollo, all these things that are leaving Earth's orbit, if you will, gravitational pull, they need to get up to about 25,000 miles an hour, about 7 miles per second. So if that spaceship were passing in front of you, you probably wouldn't see it. You'd certainly feel it. A sonic boom would blow your doors off, but assuming it took place in Earth's atmosphere, which it wouldn't, because that would burn up at 25,000 miles an hour. But they've got to keep going faster and faster and faster to escape the Earth's gravitational pull, and that is roughly 7 miles per second or 25,000 miles per hour, which has implications on liftoff because the G-forces on liftoff of the James Webb Space Telescope, of the Hubble, those mirrors are made of glass, and glass cracks when you bend it or you shake it, and the vibrations are incredible at liftoff. In fact, what was discovered in the space shuttle is that some of the tiles, the temperature tiles that would protect the space shuttle upon re-entry, they would be blown off it. And they did not know why. And they figured out after a while that the fuel that was coming off at liftoff was coming off hypersonically. So that the sonic booms were causing some of those tiles to disintegrate and blow off it. So when you see all this steam, you think it's smoke, but it's really steam. NASA or any liftoff, it could be Elon Musk, SpaceX, or whomever, Richard Branson with his, who's got Blue Origin? Is that Bezos? Virgin Galactic is Branson. They dump roughly 500,000 gallons of water at the moment ignition hits because it muffles some of the sound and the sonic waves get diffused a bit. And that's what that water is dumped in. So when you see what looks like smoke, it's really steam. And that is to somewhat mute the sonic booms because it shakes so much. But that poses a challenge for the engineers to structure the spacecraft and all the parts of it so it doesn't break the glass and the other components of whatever satellite or telescope they're launching. So for example, the space shuttle, the tower is 300 feet high for the space shuttle missions, and going straight up. This cargo, this monstrous thing was already doing 100 miles an hour going straight up by the time it cleared the tower. That's how much force. I think it was 7 million pounds of thrust. I think that's the number. But there were so many complications that had to be worked out, which was why the James Webb Space Telescope was a mini miracle, that it not only launched, the glass didn't crack, and everything unfolded. I think there were 360 some odd points of failure, or 460 points of failure. Any single one of them would have torpedoed the mission, and everything went flawlessly. But that is what a testament to NASA and the international community. I think we launched it from Papua New Guinea or Guam or somewhere like that, because the French agency, they had a spectacular record of launching satellites into outer space, and this was not one that we could risk. So we didn't even launch from America. But that just gives some background of what NASA does. When we see these images from Hubble and James Webb and the things that we're learning about the cosmology and the universe and the age of it and all these distances and Einstein's relativity and the speed of light. Now galaxies, turns out, they're redshifting faster than the speed of light. How do we account for that? That's all because we figured this out, how to get these things up into orbit, get rid of the light pollution that we experience here, the atmospheric waves and all that stuff, and get pure images. And that's how this telescope is absolutely amazing. But now Elon Musk, for example, has been talking for a while about colonizing Mars. So we think, all right, we've got rocket ships. We'll just send up rocket ships and we'll send some people who want to go, and then we'll try to set up greenhouses and get sources of water and oxygen and heat and all and food and the basics that we need. But what would that look like? What's involved with that? Well, first, it takes about 9 months for us to get to Mars. Even with gravity assist, where the rocket starts out at 25,000 miles an hour. Well, it doesn't start out that way, but by the time it gets up to its maximum speed, then we launch it around the sun or around, well, it wouldn't really be another planet because we're just going to the one next door to us. But gravity assist might speed it up to 40,000 miles an hour, and that gets it there faster. It's still 9 months away. So people would have to be able to survive psychologically for 9 months in a tin can, as Elton John sang, and get there, do the work, and then if they want to come back, it's going to take, if they have the propellant to get them up to speed again, the same speed that got them there, it's another 9 months to get back. So Mars is on average 140 million miles from us. It ranges, I think it goes 410 million when Mars is on the opposite side of the sun as Earth. So it takes communication. If we did get people to colonize Mars and we could figure out the physics and all the part just to sustain life, communicating with them would take roughly an average of 13 minutes. Sometimes it only takes 5 minutes if Mars and Earth are on the same side of the sun, basically, when they're closest to one another. And it takes up to, I think, 21 minutes when it's on the opposite side of the sun. So emergency care, if somebody had an issue up there, it would still take at least 5 minutes to get a message to us, and we got to solve the problem in 5 minutes to get back. But at other times, it's 20 minutes this way, solve whatever the problem is, 20 minutes back. So immediate back and forth communication is currently impossible. So then you get into what kind of personalities, and I included this in my book called Through Lines, The Life of Your Personality. And I have 9 basic personalities outlined. Oh, that right there, that QR code, if you want to take the test, it will show you. It's a 77 question test that I devised for my life coaching practice. And that it's very thorough. But in the book that I wrote that the test is based upon, I did an appendix talking about life on Mars, colonizing Mars, and what personality types would work well together. Because if you could send 50 people, if you were in charge of the agency of selecting the personalities that would go, how would you construct those 50 people? How would you basically play God in the Garden of Eden? Or if you don't believe in God, Elon Musk, you get to play Elon personality-wise, because once those people get there, they may or may not be coming back. But how well would we do in that environment? And if you had some people who were just arrogant and bossy, some other folks might decide they don't like them. I don't know. You just got to think about these things, that we may solve the physics, but can we solve the psyche, the psychological parts of it, where just put 50 people on Earth in a room together and they won't get along necessarily? What would be the consequences of having a bad mix of personalities? But if you take the personality test, for example, you'll see why I went there in this, about how would you distribute, because you need some type A's, but you also need people who are more agreeable. You need some people who aren't overly opinionated but competent at a given field. So how would you blend those to get this new civilization off the ground, literally and figuratively? Then another one that showed up was, what Bible verses did the Apollo 8 astronauts read? And it dawned on me at some point that I know one of them started with Genesis 1:1, but I wasn't quite sure, so I just typed it in, and this was the information that came up. And I don't care if you believe in God or not. That's not why I'm doing this, to prove anything. It's just as a fact that this is how it went. But in their 9th orbit around the moon, right, this was our first lunar landing on December 24th, 1968. And this was during the Vietnam War, too, so that sort of set the worldwide tone, certainly American tone, for what was taking place, anti-war protests and such. Bill Anders, Jim Lavelle, and Frank Borman took turns reading Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 to 10. So the famous passage, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That everybody knows that, whether you believe it or not. It's just part of our culture, and you learn it at some point. Bill Anders read that. He read verses 1 to 4. Jim Lavelle read verses 5 to 8. And the final 2 verses were Frank Borman's. And the final verse 10 that they read in Genesis 1 was, and God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas. And God saw that it was good. So that kind of gave some folks hope and inspiration and such. But I wonder, if you were alive and you were an atheist at that time and still are an atheist, I wonder what your sense was when you found out that was read, or you heard them reading it, via radio broadcast. What your sense would have been on that one. Because when you, if you were to look at when you get on an airplane and you're flying somewhere and you look down, the earth looks peaceful. It just does. Now, the Bible writers had no perspective of that sort whatsoever, because we were land-based and sea-based. That was it. Earth was it. We weren't flying at the time. But when you're up you're flying at 35,000 feet going somewhere and you look down, it looks so peaceful, right? But once you land, it's going to be a shit show. People don't get along that well. We get along reasonably well. You're going to get from point A to point B generally, and nobody's going to assault you. But even still, it's stressful on planet Earth. So would you have wanted to say God saw that it was good, or would you see it as good? I don't. These are just fun. Philosophically speaking, these things are fun to contemplate. So little tidbits about NASA and some of the things that have come from NASA, and I just love it when NASA gets refunded each year when the budget comes out. I hate it when there's talks of it being cut back. I understand the need to be fiscally conservative. You can't just spend on everything you want. But I was really glad that they continued to fund the James Webb Space Telescope so that we can continue to get these images and such. So there it is, guys. If you made it this far, congratulations. I love this stuff. And leave your comments. I read the majority of them and go from there. Have a great day. See you in another video. Keep thinking theology, science, and whatever else you're going to think. Hey, folks, if you want to take the personality test that I created for my life coaching practice, which is based on the book that I wrote, put your phone up, turn it on camera, and focus on this, and it'll take you to it. And it'll take you about 20 minutes to complete the test. It's free, and you'll get some information on your personality. It's quite detailed, quite revealing. It's kind of fun as well. And I'll be leaving this QR code up on the wall behind me for my regular videos. So I hope you take it, and I hope you enjoy it.